The galaxy unites against humanity. The great council chamber of the galaxy had never been so full. From every corner of the stars, leaders, generals, and envoys arrived, their banners glowing with pride, their voices heavy with fear. The reason was one word whispered in dread across every empire: humanity. The Archon Dominion spoke first, their ambassador's voice sharp as steel. "They grow too fast," he said, his four eyes narrowing. "Their colonies spread on dead worlds where no other species can live. They adapt to poisoned skies. They drink water filled with metal. They should not survive, yet they do." The Sarathi hive followed, their queen's voice echoing across the chamber like a swarm. "They fight without limit. Their soldiers do not retreat, even when they are cut down." Another rises. "They are not like us. They are something else." The Koran Republic stood next, their admiral slamming a clawed hand against the table. "We once believed them weak, yet they defeated fleets 10 times larger. We once thought them ignorant, yet they built weapons that shake our suns. If we do not act together, there will be no galaxy left for us." Murmurs filled the hall. The smaller species shivered, remembering their own defeats. Each one had stories. Of humans, miners who survived vacuum with nothing but rags, soldiers who fought even when their ships burned around them, leaders who did not bow to empires that ruled for thousands of years. In every story, humans stood unbroken. It was then that the Grand Speaker of the Council rose, a towering figure, draped in silver robes. "Let it be known," he declared, his voice amplified across the chamber. "From this day, all empires shall unite. Our fleets, our armies, our strength combined, humanity must be contained. Their rise must be stopped, or all we know will fall beneath their shadow." The chamber shook with agreement. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, bitter rivals agreed to fight side by side. The Dominion swore their fleets, the Hive swore their swarms, the Republic swore their armies. One by one, the great empires pledged, until the galaxy itself seemed to roar with unity. The Great Alliance was born not to defend but to destroy. But far from the Council's shining towers, humanity already knew. On a silent station orbiting a dead star, human leaders sat in a dark room, their faces lit by dim screens. Reports of the Council's decision arrived. Every empire had sworn to break them. Every fleet prepared to march. No, one in the room trembled. One general leaned forward, scars across his face. "They believe numbers will save them," he said softly. "But they forget. Numbers have never saved anyone from humans." Another, a woman with cold eyes, placed a single hand on the table. "Let them come," she whispered. "They will learn what it means to challenge Earth." Outside the window, the human fleet waited, silent and disciplined. Ships built from scrap and genius, engines roaring with unnatural speed, weapons forged in desperation and perfected through endless wars. Every vessel was scarred, but every vessel was alive. To the galaxy, they were monsters. To themselves, they were survivors. The Council thought humanity was unprepared, but they did not see the truth. Every human child grew up with history written in fire: wars, hunger, collapse, and rise again, where other species lived. In peace for centuries, humans lived through storms, and storms forged them strong. The Alliance was coming, but humanity was not afraid. On the outer colonies, settlers packed supplies, trained with rifles, and swore oaths to defend the soil they had built with blood. On warships, crews checked their weapons again and again, whispering promises to return. On Earth itself, the sky burned with new engines as more ships rose to join the fleet. A single message was sent across the human network. From soldier to child, from colony to capital, it read only one line: "We stand together, we stand unbroken." And as the galaxy prepared to crush them with united power, humanity prepared too, not to survive, but to fight. For when the storm came, they would not bend. They would rise as they always had, and the galaxy would learn the truth. Every alliance might fall, but humanity never would. The first strike. The alliance did not wait. Within days of their decision, fleets gathered in the void like storm clouds. Thousands of ships from dozens of empires aligned under a single banner. their weapons glowing, their engines burning. The galaxy had never seen such unity before, and never again would it see it after. Every alien believed victory was certain. How could humanity, a young species with so few worlds, stand against this tide? The first strike was aimed at the colonies beyond Sol, small mining stations, trade hubs, and scattered settlements. The Alliance expected silence and surrender. They expected humans to bow when they saw the endless fleets approach. But when their armadas warped into the dark skies of the Vega system, they found something else waiting. It was not a grand fleet, not a wall of endless ships. It was a handful, barely 100 human warships scarred and battered against thousands. They looked like broken teeth against a storm. Alien commanders laughed, their voices dripping with arrogance. "Crush them in one wave," ordered the Archon Admiral. "Let the galaxy see how weak they truly are." The fleets moved, weapons charged. The stars lit with fire. Yet the humans did not retreat. Their ships advanced, slow and deliberate, like predators stalking prey. The first volleys tore through the void, thousands of beams crossing the black. But when they struck human ships, something strange happened. The vessels twisted, shield arrays flaring, absorbing fire in ways the aliens had never seen. The scars on human ships were not weaknesses, they were lessons, each plate of armor forged from battles that had already been survived. Then the humans fired back, not in panic, not in fear, but in precision. Each shot struck with surgical focus. Each missile guided like a hunter's arrow. Alliance ships exploded in brilliant waves, thousands dying in the first minutes. The alien laughter died, replaced by silence, replaced by shock. Inside one command deck, a Sarathi captain screamed, "This is impossible, they are few, they should fall." But her words were drowned by alarms as another human torpedo split her ship apart. The Quran Admiral watched as his proud fleet, built over centuries, collapsed before a handful of human ships. "How can they fight like this?" he whispered, claws trembling. "How can they adapt so fast?" On the human side, there was no celebration, no cheering. Officers barked commands, crews worked with calm efficiency. They had no illusions. This was only the beginning. The alliance was vast. But the humans knew something the galaxy did not. Victory was not about numbers, it was about will. And humans had more will than any empire had ever seen. When the battle ended, the Vega system was silent. Where thousands of alien ships had arrived, only fragments floated, burning wrecks across the stars. The 100 human ships, scarred but alive, stood alone. Not one retreated, not one surrendered. The message of the first strike spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Alien civilians whispered in fear. If thousands could not defeat them, what hope do we have? Leaders shouted at one another, demanding answers, demanding new strategies. But the truth was already seated in their hearts. The Alliance had struck first, and the Alliance had failed. Back on Earth, the generals received the report. The room was quiet as the numbers appeared. Alien fleets destroyed, human losses few. One general finally spoke, her voice cold as iron. "They thought they could break us with fear, but fear is their weapon, not ours." Another leaned forward, his hands shaking not with dread but with fury. "Now they know what happens when they strike first." In the void above Vega, human marines floated among the wreckage, gathering survivors. Even in victory, they did not forget who they were. Where other species might slaughter without mercy, humans pulled the wounded from shattered hulls. Alien or not, prisoners stared at them in disbelief. "How can you save us after we came to destroy you?" one whispered. A Marine answered with a grim smile. "Because we are human, and that is enough." But beneath this mercy burned a fire. Every soldier, every settler, every leader knew the truth. The Alliance would not stop. More fleets would come, bigger, stronger, endless. The galaxy would throw everything it had at Earth. Yet this first strike had shown the future. No matter how many came, humanity would not bow. The stars themselves seemed to whisper the truth. The first strike was only The beginning. And in that beginning, the galaxy learned fear because they had seen the impossible, because humanity had stood against the storm and advanced, and because deep inside, every alien commander now asked the same question. If this was how humans fought when they were outnumbered, what would happen when they were not? The shattered armadas. The Council could not believe the reports. Entire fleets destroyed by only a fraction of humanity's strength. The Vega disaster was supposed to be the first of many victories, yet it became the first nightmare. Still, the IU Alliance refused to accept defeat. They said the Vega fleet was careless, they said humanity got lucky. So they sent more, twice as many ships, twice as many soldiers. They promised the galaxy that humans would be crushed this time. The new fleets gathered like thunder across the stars. Massive Arkan dreadnoughts, Sarathi swarm carriers, Koran battle platforms, and ships from a dozen lesser empires. Together they numbered in the tens of thousands. A wave of steel and fire that darkened suns. No species had ever faced such power before, but humanity did not run. In the orbit of Titan, the human admirals stood before holographic maps. The enemy's path was clear. One admiral, old and scarred, raised his hand to the map. They think numbers will save them again, he said softly. But numbers mean nothing if the arm that holds them breaks. The fleets clashed at the rim of Sol, where asteroid belts turned the void into a maze. The aliens thought the battlefield was chosen by chance, but the humans had lured them there. Every rock, every shadow, every hidden passage was known to human captains. The battle began with fire so bright it looked like stars dying. Alien commanders ordered forward, confident in their overwhelming might. But human ships danced between asteroids, striking fast, then vanishing into shadows. Entire swarms crashed into ambushes. Dreadnoughts burned in crossfire. The Alliance had strength, but humanity had cunning. Every strike cut deeper. Every maneuver shattered confidence. And then came. The Marines' boarding pods slammed into alien hulls. Doors were torn open and human soldiers poured inside. They moved like fire through corridors, relentless and merciless. Sarathi warriors screamed as humans cut through them. Arkan captains fell with disbelief frozen on their faces. Every empire had trained for war, but none had trained for this. Humans did not just fight, they adapted with every second. They turned fear into fuel, chaos into control. Admirals of the Alliance shouted orders, but their voices shook. What are they? Why do they fight like this? Cried one. Another whispered the words that began to spread like a plague. They are Deathworlders. The term burned through every comms channel. It spread from ship to ship, species to species, and with it came dread. The shattered armadas felt their courage draining. Some ships broke formation, some fled into the void. But fleeing only made them easier prey. Human ships hunted them down one by one. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the rim was filled with wreckage. Thousands of alien ships reduced to drifting husks. The greatest armadas the galaxy had ever known, now broken and scattered, and humanity still stood, scarred but unbowed. Among the survivors, stories began to spread. A Sarathi officer whispered of a single human soldier who fought even after losing an arm. A Koran engineer swore he saw humans laughing as they charged into fire. An Arkan prisoner muttered that humans had stared into the abyss of death, and the abyss had blinked first. These stories spread faster than the truth of the battle itself, and with them, the legend grew. Back at the council, chaos erupted. Some demanded the war end. Better to make peace, shouted one envoy, before we are all destroyed. Others refused, screaming of revenge. They cannot be allowed to exist, howled a Sarathi queen. If they live, we will all fall. The alliances that once swore unity now began to crack. Old rivalries returned, distrust simmered. The great union of the galaxy was no longer solid. It was breaking under the weight of humanity's defiance. On Earth, however, the mood was quiet. The reports of victory were received, but there was no celebration. Every soldier, every leader knew the truth. The alliance was vast and it would not stop. For every armada shattered, another would come, but still, the human message remained the same. We stand together. We stand unbroken. The shattered armadas drifted in silence across the stars, and in that silence, the galaxy trembled. Because, for the first time, they realized something terrifying. It was not humanity who should be afraid of the galaxy. It was the galaxy that should be afraid of humanity. The fear spreads. The galaxy had seen battles before, but never like this. Never had so many ships fallen so quickly. Never had so many empires tasted defeat at the hands of so few. The shattered armadas were supposed to be the proof of human weakness. Instead, they became the proof of human terror. Across the stars, whispers began. Merchants spoke of human fleets that vanished into shadows, only to strike when least expected. Travelers told stories of Marines who fought without fear, who did not stop even when wounded. Prisoners returned with eyes wide, muttering the same word again and again: Deathworlders. In the markets of the Koran Republic, traders packed their stalls in silence. Customers no longer argued over prices, they argued over survival. If they can defeat the strongest fleets, one muttered, what chance do we have? On the fringe colonies of the Sarathi hive, entire families hid in underground burrows. They feared that humans would come for revenge, yet the humans had not come. Not yet. Fear was more powerful than truth, and fear spread faster than light. Inside, the chambers of the Alliance Council, chaos ruled. The great hall that once roared with unity now cracked with division. Some leaders shouted for peace. We cannot defeat them. Better to sign a treaty before we lose everything. Others snarled with hatred. They are monsters. If we allow them to live, they will conquer us all. The arguments turned violent, old enemies pointing claws, tendrils, and weapons at one another. The Alliance had united in fear. But now fear was tearing it apart. Meanwhile, the humans watched. From hidden stations and silent warships, they listened to intercepted transmissions. They saw the cracks forming, the doubts spreading, and though they did not laugh, they understood. Fear itself was becoming their greatest weapon. On the front lines, alien soldiers began to hesitate. Orders to advance were met with silence. Captains looked at their crews and saw hesitation in their eyes. They no longer believed victory was possible. Even before battles began, many had already lost in their hearts. Then came the stories that turned fear into legend. A Sarathi scout claimed he saw a single human ship take down 20 enemy cruisers. A Koran survivor swore he saw human soldiers walk through fire unharmed. Others whispered that humans could survive in space with no suits. The stories were not true, not fully, but truth no longer mattered. The galaxy believed, and belief made fear stronger. In one distant system, an alien commander ordered his fleet to retreat before a single human vessel. He had lost all will to fight. In another, entire colonies surrendered at the mere sight of a human patrol. The humans did not ask for surrender, yet it was given. Back on Earth, leaders studied the reports. They saw how fear was spreading faster than any weapon. One general spoke, her voice calm but steady. They have chosen to see us as monsters, so let them. Because in fear they destroy themselves. But among the soldiers, among the people, there was no arrogance. They did not see themselves as gods or monsters. They saw themselves as survivors. Every human knew the price of survival, and every human knew the war was far from over. In the deepest chambers of the Sarathi hive, the queen held a secret meeting. Her voice trembled for the first time in centuries. If humanity cannot be broken, she whispered, then perhaps we must make a new plan. And in the shadows of the Koran Republic, spies whispered to one another, perhaps it is better to betray the Alliance than to face the humans again. The Alliance had been formed to fight humanity. But now each empire looked at its allies with suspicion. Old rivalries grew stronger. The cracks widened. Fear had done what weapons could not. And far away in the silence of space, a human fleet drifted like predators waiting. They did not strike, not yet. They let the fear spread, let the stories grow, because they knew the truth. Sometimes the greatest victory is won before the battle even begins. The galaxy shivered in the dark, and the name of humanity spread like fire, not as victims, not as prey, but as the unbroken. as the Deathworlders who had faced the might of countless empires and stood tall, and every world, every empire, every leader asked themselves the same question. If fear alone could break their alliances, what would happen when humanity struck again? The last great push. The galaxy was breaking. Whispers of fear spread like sickness. Alliances crumbled in secret. Empires questioned one another. But the leaders of the alliance refused to accept defeat. They believed there was still one chance left, one final strike that could end humanity forever. The call went out. Every empire was ordered to send its strongest ships, its most powerful weapons, its bravest soldiers. From the Hive came swarms of living carriers. From the Dominion came dreadnoughts the size of moons. From the Republic came fleets bristling with plasma cannons. Even smaller empires too weak to resist were forced to contribute. The galaxy united once more, not from trust but from desperation. The fleet that gathered was larger than anything ever seen. Millions of ships filled the void, their engines burning like false stars. From a distance it looked as if the galaxy itself had turned into a storm of fire. The alien commanders swore this would be the end. Humanity cannot withstand this, no one can, the Sarathi Queen hissed. They will drown beneath the weight of the galaxy, the Archon Admiral promised. The humans heard of the coming storm, on Earth, in colonies, in the black of space. The news spread. For the first time, silence touched them. Even the strongest soldier paused, even the oldest veteran tightened his grip. They knew what was coming. The greatest armada in history, all aimed at their destruction. In the command chamber on Earth, leaders sat in shadows. A single hologram flickered with the image of the alien fleet. Stretching from one star to the next, one general spoke softly. If we fight them ship for ship, we will fall. Another leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Then we will not fight them ship for ship. Humanity had prepared for this moment. Not with numbers, not with alliances, but with something else. In hidden stations, in forgotten shipyards, a weapon had been built. Not a single gun, not a single ship, but a strategy. One that no alien mind could imagine. The day came. The great fleet of the Alliance surged across the stars. It reached the edges of human space, blotting out the light of suns. Millions of voices roared for war. The signal was given. The last great push had begun. The first waves entered the dark edges of Sol, expecting scattered resistance. They found silence, no fleets waiting, no armies rushing forward. The alien commanders laughed. They are afraid. They are hiding, they said. But then the silence broke. Human ships did not meet them head-on. Instead, the void itself came alive. Asteroids exploded with hidden mines. Stars pulsed with controlled energy bursts. Entire sections of space had been turned into traps. The Alliance ships burned by the thousands before the real battle even began. Then the human fleet appeared. Not millions, not even hundreds of thousands, only a fraction. But they moved like shadows, weaving through the chaos they had created. They struck hard, they struck fast, and every strike cut deep. Alien admirals screamed for order, but their voices drowned in static and fire. The swarm collapsed into confusion. Some ships fled, some fired blindly, some turned on each other. The more they fought, the more they lost, because humanity had learned. They did not need to outnumber the galaxy. They only needed to outthink. Yet in the middle of the chaos, human soldiers boarded again. They fought through endless corridors, tearing apart defenses, planting charges. One Marine whispered through his comms, "If this is the end, let it be remembered we did not bow." Another answered with a laugh, "This is not the end, this is the beginning." For 3 days the battle raged. The last great push became the last great collapse. The Alliance fleet, the strongest in history, began to shatter. One empire after another broke, fleeing, surrendering, or turning on its allies. The dream of crushing humanity ended in screams and silence. On Earth, the reports came. The human leaders listened. In silence at last, one general spoke, his voice filled with iron. "They threw the galaxy at us," he said, "and we are still here." The last great push had been meant to end humanity. Instead, it ended the Alliance. And across the stars, the fear became certainty. If even the greatest fleet in history could not break humanity, then nothing ever would. The collapse of alliances. The last great push was over. What was once the largest fleet in the history of the galaxy was now scattered wreckage drifting in the void. Millions of alien lives were gone, burned away in fire and silence. The Alliance had promised victory, but it delivered only death. And in the ruins of that failure, something even more dangerous began. The unity of the galaxy collapsed. The same leaders who once raised their voices in one promise now turned on each other. Blame spread faster than light. The Sarathi Hive accused the Arkan Dominion of cowardice. The Dominion accused the Koran Republic of betrayal. The smaller empires accused everyone. Their voices rose in rage, not against humans, but against their supposed allies in the council chamber. Chaos reigned. Once filled with proud banners, now it was filled with shouting and threats. Weapons were drawn in the very heart of the chamber. For centuries, these empires had hated one another. They had only united for fear of humanity. And now, with humanity still unbroken, that fear turned inward. Some empires broke away completely. The Zarn Confederacy declared neutrality, pulling its fleets back to guard its homeworlds. The Veyron Assembly secretly opened communications with humans, offering trade in exchange for safety. Others began secret wars in the shadows. Old grudges returned like fire through dry wood. The Alliance was no longer an alliance. It was a dying beast tearing itself apart. On distant worlds, citizens watched the news with wide eyes. They no longer believed the lies of their leaders. They no longer saw humanity as prey. They saw humanity as the storm that had broken the impossible, and many began to wonder if it was safer to live under human shadow than to live under their own empires. Meanwhile, humanity waited. On Earth, the skies glowed with shipyards still building. On the colonies, settlers sharpened blades and tightened their defenses. The human fleet did not chase the broken empires. They did not strike the weakened. Instead, they watched as the galaxy consumed itself. In hidden stations, human commanders shared intercepted transmissions. They heard the Hive scream for vengeance. The Dominion demand retribution. The Republic curse its allies. And with every word, the humans knew the truth. The galaxy no longer fought humanity. It fought itself. Yet among the survivors of the shattered armadas, something even darker grew. Stories spread of human mercy. Prisoners had been saved. Wounded had been treated. Survivors had been returned. But mercy only deepened the terror. "Why save us?" whispered one Sarathi soldier. "Why not destroy us as we tried to destroy them?" The answer came in silence, and in that silence, fear grew deeper. Because a monster that shows mercy is more terrifying than one that shows none. The collapse of alliances spread across the stars. Ships refused to answer calls. Borders burned. With skirmishes, the council itself split into factions, each one claiming authority. But none had the strength to act. Because in every debate, in every speech, in every hidden meeting, the same question was whispered. What if the humans are listening? Back on Earth, a message was prepared. Not of victory, not of arrogance, but of truth. It was simple, it was short, and it was sent across the stars. We never wanted war, but we did not break, and we will not bow. The message spread like fire. To some, it was defiance. To others, it was warning. But to all, it was undeniable proof. Humanity had survived the impossible, and the galaxy could not stand united against them in the ruins of their great alliance. The empires now stood alone. The Hive curled into its tunnels. The Dominion fortified its borders. The Republic drowned in fear. The galaxy that once swore unity now fractured into silence and suspicion. And through it all, one truth remained. Humanity stood unbroken. The collapse was not a single event. It was a chain of fear, distrust, and failure, and it dragged the galaxy into darkness while humanity, scarred but steady, stood in the light. The war had not ended, but the alliances had, and that truth was more powerful than any weapon, because the galaxy no longer asked, "How do we defeat them?" Now it asked, how do we survive them? Humanity stands alone. The galaxy had changed. Once, the council chamber roared with voices, banners of empires hung high, and unity seemed unbreakable. Now the chamber was empty. Dust floated where speeches once echoed. Silence reigned where armies once marched. The great alliance had fallen not by human hands but by its own fear and failure. And in the center of it all, humanity still stood, Earth scarred but alive, colonies battered but unbroken, fleets worn yet ready. The galaxy had thrown everything against them, armadas, swarms, weapons of ages, and still humanity endured. To the empires, this endurance was more terrifying than any victory, because it meant there was nothing left to try. On Earth, the leaders gathered in quiet halls. There was no cheering, no endless parades, only silence, for they knew the war had not brought glory, it had brought graves. Families wept for the lost. Soldiers stood by empty bunks. Colonies buried their dead beneath alien skies. Humanity had won, but victory felt heavy. A message was prepared, not to taunt, not to boast, but to speak. And when it was sent, it echoed across every channel, every frequency, reaching every corner of the galaxy. The voice was steady, calm, human. We never sought this war, but we did not break. You united to destroy us, yet we still stand. And we will always stand. If you wish peace, we will listen. If you wish war, remember this. We will not bow. The message spread faster than fear. Alien civilians listened with wide eyes. Some wept, some trembled. Some whispered that maybe, just maybe, humanity had never been the monsters their leaders claimed. Others shivered with dread, imagining what would happen if war ever returned. In the ruins of the hive, the queen whispered to her council, "They cannot be broken, not by fire, not by fear, not by time. We must rethink everything we know." In the fortress of the Dominion, the admiral stared at maps, his claws digging into steel. "They stood against all of us," he muttered, "and they did not fall. If they stand alone, they are stronger than all combined." And in the fractured republic, citizens demanded answers. "Why do they stand while we fall apart?" they cried. Their leaders had no reply. Meanwhile, humanity turned inward, shipyards rebuilt, soldiers trained, families healed. They did not march out to conquer. They did not demand empires to kneel. They simply lived. But that simple act, that survival, was the most terrifying thing of all, because it showed the galaxy that humanity did not need allies, did not need mercy, did not need approval. They stood alone, and that was enough. Legends began to grow. Children of alien worlds whispered stories of humans who fought like storms, who smiled in fire, who stood unbroken even when surrounded. Some stories painted them as protectors, others as destroyers. But in every version, one truth remained. Humanity endured, and so the galaxy watched. Empires rebuilt their fleets, but their eyes never left Earth. Spies whispered in shadows, but their reports all said the same. Do not underestimate them. They are still here. They are still strong. Fear had once united the galaxy against humanity. Now it kept the galaxy apart. On the edge of human space, a lone fleet drifted. The stars reflected in their scarred hulls. Marines stood ready. Captains watched in silence. One young soldier looked at the black beyond and asked his commander, "Do you think they will ever come again?" The commander's eyes did not blink, his voice steady. "They will one day," he said. "But when they do, they will find us as they always have, unbroken." And in that moment, humanity's truth was clear. Not conquerors, not invaders, not prey, but survivors. Survivors who had faced the galaxy united and still remained. The alliances had fallen. The empires had shattered. But Earth still stood. And in the silence of space, the galaxy whispered the name of the unyielding, the name of the Deathworlders, the name of humanity. Humanity stood alone, and humanity stood unbroken.